Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stacy Varghese, and I am Director of Leadership Annual Giving and Engagement at St. John's University. Today, we have Michael Ferraro, O'Brien Joslyn, and Michael Cuomo, who will speak on profitable real estate and first-time home buying. Some housekeeping rules before you begin. If you have a question, please submit it on the bottom right in the Q&A section to panelists, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Now, I'm excited to introduce our speaker. Michael Ferraro is the owner of LLA Real Estate, powered by Compass. Michael is part of the next generation of real estate brokers in Connecticut. His experience in media marketing, mixed with Compass's new state-of-the-art technology platform, has allowed Michael to sell and set record sale prices on some of the most luxurious properties in Greenwich in 2020. Being a collegiate All-American swimmer, Michael understands the amount of hard work, discipline, and dedication it takes to excel at what he does. O'Brien Joslyn is honored to work with the most prestigious team in Connecticut, LLA Real Estate Group, in one of the most robust markets in the country. As a member of the growing collective of top producing agents at Compass, a collaborative of Greater Connecticut's luxury real estate experts, he is no stranger to competitive markets. Being a former Division I athlete, O'Brien understands competition and knows how to be successful. His skills make him a powerful contender and real estate agent who provides white glove service along with his unmatched negotiation skills. Michael Cuomo is a loan officer at Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. He has been in the mortgage industry, originating loans since 2004. Michael is also an avid golfer and mountain biker with a passion for traveling. Welcome, gentlemen. O'Brien, I will hand the webinar controls over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank all of you who made it this morning. And for those of you that are here with us, I hope you are excited to learn a lot about real estate, how to become profitable in it, how to get started, and more importantly, investing in different types of revenue streams in real estate, whether it may be single families, multifamilies, commercial, REITs, syndications, so on and so forth. And to start you off, we want to break down the difference between renting versus owning your home. So here's some pros and cons. What you'll like to go into if you have your property, the number one thing is that you'll be building your equity. Building your equity is very important because down the road, over time, your net worth will be increasing. And then the next step, if you don't go with the route of building your purchasing your own property, the following option is renting. As you know, some of you have to identify where your current lifestyle is. If you can rent, if you can buy, it's all coming down to where you are financially and where your credit is. These are the two main factors that play into if you can purchase. So what I would like to point out is if you don't have the opportunity to purchase, renting is not a bad thing, but as you go through the webinar, you will understand the benefits and the power of real estate and how you can build your wealth that way. So renting also gives flexibility. In the event that you do need to sell your home, you do have that option as well, or more importantly, in lease. That's why we go into the different types of investment properties where you can see the most return on your investment. And then we go from there to make a best decision for you. So as we pointed out before, starting off with your credit, that's what you want to establish from an early stage. So there are many different ways to do this. If you already have a low credit score and it's due to debts, one thing that I really want to point out is the snowball effect. So snowball effect, simplified, is starting out with the lowest amount of debt that you have. Let's say if it's credit card debt, lowest amount, you pay that off first and you work your way up to the largest value. That way, over time, you will be increasing your credit score, which is vital in terms of purchasing your property. If your credit score is lower, you tend to pay higher interest when you invest in these properties. Interest is not your best friend when you take out these large amounts of loans, because over time, you will be paying most back in interest. So starting off early For myself, how I began building up my credit, before I got into college, I went through a trade line with my mom, as many people can do. From an early age, I became an authorized user on her account, which means we went to the bank, chasing this example. She put me on her account. I didn't even have the credit card. However, when my mom paid off her bills, as a result, my credit score increased, resulting by the time I graduated, I had the 740 credit score, and then I was able to start establishing myself in the real estate field. So that's just one other thing that I wanted to point out. And then lastly, before I touch on any other topics, I wanted to really emphasize the importance of getting pre-approved. So a pre-approval is when you go through with a loan officer, such as Michael Cuomo, and you will be able to identify how much home you can afford. With this, it will save you a lot of heartbreak if you go with the other option of seeing the properties first, then finding out if you can afford it. You don't want to fall in love with a property that you ultimately do not have the funds to pay for. So, in addition to that pre-approval, with that being presented with your offer, there's a higher chance that it will be accepted, especially in this market where it is very competitive. You want to be the one that stands out with a loan officer that is well known and trusted in your community. So, following up, I would like to present Michael Cuomo, someone that I have tremendous amount of respect for, well known in this community all throughout Connecticut, one of the best loan officers I know, and he is here to share some valuable information for you.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, Michael, and everyone else. Thank you for attending. I'm just going to kind of simplify this because I think a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers, they don't understand. They have this convoluted idea. It's so difficult, hard, impossible to buy a house. It really isn't. It comes down to three key components. It's, as O'Brien touched upon, credit is the major one. How much money do you make? And basically, how much do you have for down payment and closing costs, which usually is the prohibitive portion of that, which people think, and it doesn't have to be the case. As for first-time home buyers, you can put as little as nothing down. There's lots of local programs. If you look at your town, municipalities, even your state level, you can sometimes find grants, money that way. A lot of employers offer. Such as maybe St. John's does. I know Yale here in Connecticut does for their employees and hospital workers, and there's large corporations such as Amazon, of that nature, and they'll give you as an employee incentives to purchase in the areas that you work. If none of those apply to you, you can definitely go with government programs. A lot of these loans only require a minimum of 3% down. Some are 3.5%. If you have that 20% down payment, that's great, but it's not the end all be all. So you can get a property. And as O'Brien said, if you're renting, there's two options there. Most of the time, you can purchase a smaller home or a condo for the same amount that you're renting right now. If that weren't the case, you can also go to maybe a multifamily, such as a two-family house, which the income that you would get from one of the units, you can live in one and almost have the other one paid off. So if you have limited income, you still can qualify in that way. As far as, again, the key component of down payment and closing costs, I think in my experience, that's been the number one item that people have issue with or coming up with. You can usually get money from other sources as well. You're allowed gifts. So maybe you have a relative, a father, a mother, brother, sister, aunt, uncle. They can pay for almost all of it. They can give you a little bit to supplement what you may have or you're short, and you can do it that way. Right now it's a very good time to buy just because of the market. There's so many houses coming and going, and rates are incredibly low. I've been doing this since 2003, and I thought the end was years ago, and now here we are, and rates start sometimes in the twos. It's just so incredibly inexpensive right now. So definitely you should look into it and speak to somebody as myself, or if there's someone locally to you, reach out to them. On the other side of it, there's the investment piece. So maybe some of you have a primary residence right now, and maybe you have some equity. You can tap into that. Maybe you want to buy a vacation home. You like to ski in Vermont or something. You want to go to Florida. You can tap into the equity, do a refinance, take cash out of it, purchase a second home. A second home only requires a 10% down payment. It doesn't require a lot. The other option is if you're an investor, you can tap into that equity and you maybe get a first rental property. A lot of people are looking at that multifamilies, or depending on your area, a lot of condos are popular with investors just because exterior maintenance and all that is covered. It's basically turnkey. You just collect your rents, and when the tenant moves out, you paint, you move on. It's very non-committal for a small price. Now, with investment properties, there are a little bit more caveats. You do have to put usually larger down payments, upwards of 25%. But you know, again, it's a lot of people have an issue just getting that initial one, and once you do, you start generating that income and you start building your wealth. You can always purchase that next one, and kind of gets easier and easier as you start taking those steps. The you know, again, I want to say again, people that own primary residences right now, if you have any kind of equity in your house, and now's the time with the way the values are, it's incredibly lucrative to take that money, and you can use it for investments, because again, with the rates where they are, you're not making nearly as much as you could. I mean, let's say you had $100,000 in equity, you're not going to make a minimum of 2% on your investment. You're definitely going to take 15, 20%, depending on, you know, your level of investing and, you know, who's managing your money. But that's always a good thing. And like I said, you can always tap into that for equity, for other purchases for property. As far as the process, now for those of you, I'm going to circle back to first-time home buyers. Maybe you're a little intimidated by the process. You think it's very hard, it's complicated, or you're not going to qualify. It's again, it's really simple. Like I said, the basics were credit, income, and how much cash or down payment and closing costs you have. The process is essentially you want to talk to somebody such as myself, a loan officer, because otherwise the realtors right now, they're so busy and properties move in minutes, if not hours these days. You really have to be pre-qualified. And what that entails, you talk to me, you know, I usually pull credit. If you're working for a company, it's as simple as 2 pay stubs, 2 W-2s for the past 2 years, and, you know, any bank statements for assets they may have. And that's pretty much it. I qualify you and they say, here you go shopping. This is what you can afford. From there, you're going to work with somebody like Michael O'Brien. You go find a house, you make an offer. The offer is accepted. That's where I step back in, and I basically am the liaison between the underwriter, the processor. Those are the people behind the scenes that get your loan approved and through the process. From there, it goes to your attorney or closing agent. Usually 30 days later, you're a homeowner. It really is that simple. You know, sometimes there are complications, and I know people have probably heard, oh, this happened, and he wanted this, and that. And, you know, the benefit of talking to somebody who's experienced and knows what they're doing is they will set that up for you to know what to look for, what the roadblocks may be for your certain circumstances. So that's the important part of getting pre-qualified and talking to somebody that actually has experience. Once you close, you know, again, that's the biggest part of it. And then from there, you're on your way. I mean, to circle back to what you'll pay in rents, you can definitely own a property. So, you know, I don't want to dive into too many processes and all the behind the scenes, because I think that's, again, going to confuse a lot of people. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. And I'm more than happy to answer anybody's questions, even if I don't work with you. It's a very simple process. And I just like to have people have a clear path to the home ownership. I guess with that said, I'll pass it to Mike Ferraro.
Hi. So this storm has knocked out all of our power. I don't know how somehow I'm on this call on my iPad. I have people ripping up the carpet in my basement. It's flooded lower level. So sorry, it's crazy. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thank you, O'Brien. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, everybody, for letting us come on and share this information. So I'm going to speak to you about, from my point of view, the buying side and investing side. I think it's a really crazy, scary, fun, exciting time to be a real estate professional in any field regarding real estate, because our range now is more than ever. Whereas normally we would sell single family mainly, or luxury mainly, or commercial mainly, You have people who are normal single family owners who are trying to find out a way to refinance, pull out.
Michael, we lost audio for you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you're back.
I'm back. Where did you lose me? Can you hear me?
The different types of investment properties.
Yeah. So basically, talking about the different types of investment properties, I own a bunch now. So I'm a commercial building owner. I own the Citizens Bank.
Michael, sorry, we lost you again at Citizens Bank. Mike, can you hear me?
Alrighty, it says it's over with low bandwidth. Should be coming back in. I think I just heard him.
Michael, maybe turn off your video and then just use your sound.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, maybe this will help. Can you hear me better, guys?
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it's
Sorry.
bandwidth
Sorry.
issue.
Sorry about that. Again, it's just crazy here. I have no Wi-Fi. I'm trying to do all of this on just the regular computer audio here. So the different types of investment property we have from, like I said, multifamily, commercial, single family. I think when me and O'Brien kind of talked about what we wanted to talk about here, it was to kind of break down what's the differences between them. So what can you buy solely if you're just talking about taking your money, becoming an investor, and also what's a good deal, what's not a good deal, or what's the right investment for you based on your goals. So I basically break it down into three types of investment properties, right? You have what we would consider commercial. That's non-residential. So you're talking about commercial space for business or what have you. These are any commercial building where a business is going to run out of it. Then you have larger apartment building, multifamily. So this technically we would consider that anything 5 units and up. And then we have condos and residential multifamily, which is 4 units and under. So let's say your duplex, your triplex, whatever. Just understand anything that you go to buy, the market in the commercial and residential space is just as aggressive as a single family, not quite as aggressive right now with the rates being so low, there's such a high amount of competition, but you do get a ton of competition. So you do have to be fast. You do have to have your pre-qualification ready. You do have to understand what you're doing because other people are going to do that as well and be ready to go. So when you're talking about the different kinds, your down payment, like Michael Cuomo said, is going to be a big differentiating factor, but also to, kind of goes into, like we said, what your goal is. So when anybody ever comes up to me and asks, hey, I'd like to be an investor in real estate, and they don't really know much about it, they understand that they want to take their money and park it into real estate. That is such a wide topic. If you park it into something like an apartment building, well, you're going to need 25% down, definitely, in some cases more, and your interest rate's going to be a little bit higher. And there's a lot of headaches that go into large apartment building, multifamily, because you're going to have a ton of tenants. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and that requires property management, which sometimes that all those expenses come off of your bottom line. And if you don't know how to run spreadsheets and know how to run numbers and understand what NOIs is and cash on cash return, you could get really crushed there. Large multifamilies, like syndications where you're talking 25, 50 million, $100 million deals where you have to raise capital. Those are something where you have to be a little bit more advanced and really understand how to run spreadsheets and understand your numbers. For most people, they have the opportunity to get into, say, a condo investment property, a vacation home investment property, or maybe like a 4-unit or under, duplex, triplex, 4-unit, where it stays as residential, your interest rates stay low. You can usually self-manage those if you'd like. And people like to put their money into that because they say, well, listen, for example, I'll give you myself. I found a property that I found that was 4 units. It had completely been renovated. Each unit was around $800 or $900 a month in rent. I liked all the tenants. Some people prefer Section 8 because it's guaranteed money. Some people would rather not have Section 8, whatever their deal is. I didn't have any Section 8 tenants. It was in an area that I knew by Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. And so I said, this looks like a good deal, because when I ran the numbers between how much it was going to cost for maintenance, my expenses, how much money I was getting a month in rent, I was saying, hey, I was going to make about, a little under $4,000 a month. So I was going to probably profit around $1,500. Well, I was able to raise all the rents in there to $1,000 each. So I'm getting $4,000 a month. The property value went from the $250,000 that I bought it to $450,000 now, thanks to COVID. I have a ton of equity in it, and it can be pretty much self-managed. I don't really have to do anything in that, and it makes it really easy for me. So that's an opportunity where I put it on $60,000 to $70,000, and I'm getting a return of probably now over $2,000 a month. So that's $24,000. So I'm probably making a little under 50% return. That's a huge deal. Most people are looking for returns. If we can get 10% return cash on cash, that's okay. But I mean, you're trying to get 15 to 20% return on your cash, depending on, again, what your goal is. And then you have things like condos, where you could put down money and now you have an HOA fee, because that HOA fee is going to take care of all the property management, because now it's a condo or townhouse in a community. And you just really have to take care of your space, your 1,000 square feet, your 700 square feet, whatever it is that you own. And usually those tend to be a little less expensive, and you can get in a little bit easier as far as the purchasing power. You're not going to make quite as much money because it's less units, but that's an opportunity. Again, it totally depends on your lifestyle, what your goal is, and what your plan is. If you're a person who's saying, I want to do this professionally, meaning like I don't mind having a side job, but I want to grow. Do I have, $25,000 a month in passive income? I want to live on this cash flow. I want to grow my portfolio. Well, then there's a way to scale up and build. One of the ways you can do that is something called house hacking. This is where you have the ability to actually say, for example, you have a duplex. What you're going to do is you're going to put a down payment. You can put as little as, 3.5% FHA loan down payment, 5%, 10% maybe. You're going to live in one of the units on one side, and you're going to rent out the other, right? So let's say your mortgage is $2,500 a month. You rent one side for $1,200, and you only have a $1,200 a mortgage amount on the right side. Okay, so after a year, you leave and you go and you house hack and go buy something else that you're going to live in, and you rent out yours. Now your mortgage is paid every single month, right? And you only had to put down a small amount down, as opposed to a typical investment property, because you're doing what's called house hacking. You can do that, and you can build up the number of units that you do that in. And if you could do that every single year for, say, 10 years, you own 10 properties. If you just buy 10 duplexes, you got 20 units, making you over $1,000 a month. That's a good income. I mean, that's good passive income. So there's a ton of strategies in real estate. The investment side is massive, from all different types and all different kinds, but it really just depends on what is your appetite and what gets you excited in investing. There is no one way to do it, but there's one right way, and that's through proper cash flow. If you're not cash flowing or having at least the property pay for itself, then you are doing it wrong. As far as for 99%, there is the maybe 1% out there that can take a loss for a certain amount of time because they know that there's long-term growth in it. But that's not the typical investor. So what is your goal? What is your appetite? What gets you excited? And there is absolutely a plan that can be created for you to be successful. And you don't need, a lot of times you do not need money down or a lot of money down. There's ways around it. You can get creative with financing, and there's always deals to be had. So I hope that was somewhat of helpful. Brian, I'll pitch it back to you.
You're on mute,
Dude.
Brian. There you go.
Perfect. All right, so I'm back. So I know we just sent a lot of information in your direction, and there's tons of questions that you may have. And, ultimately, what we just wanted to do is just give you like an umbrella of all of the things that entail into towards becoming a first-time home buyer, what the process is like on the financing side, and the types of properties that you can invest into that will match your lifestyle the best. So ultimately, I want to thank all of you for coming, and I wanted to hand it back over to Stacy to open up the floors. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And yeah, we can go from there.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. I do see a few questions that came in. The first one is, does the loan officer have to be from the state you plan to buy?
No. So, well, no, hold on. I should not physically. So how it works, we are licensed in different states. So for example, I'm licensed in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Florida, and New York. I used to hold licenses in New Jersey, but I decided not to renew them just because I wasn't doing business in Jersey. So to answer your question, it also works two different ways. If you go with a bank, such as Bank of America, you walk in, you can get your checking account, and they'll have a loan officer that they pop in there and they'll talk to you. They fall under the national umbrella of Bank of America, so they can lend in any state, typically besides Texas. Texas is the only state in the union that has a very complicated process. Most people from Texas, just, they deal with individuals in Texas, but anywhere else in the country, you'll fall under that umbrella with a local bank. People such as myself, I work for a direct lender. So like for the Rocket Mortgage and stuff like that, Quicken Loans rather, and people like that, that's my type of company. We are a direct lender, very large lender. So each individual loan officer needs to be licensed in that state. However, when you talk to a loan officer, you can just simply say, hey, I'm looking in New York, are you licensed? It's not a typical question, but it is actually a very good question.
Can you find profitable properties in New York City?
I could answer that.
Michael Ferraro question.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a lot of clients and friends that are also investors in New York City. New York City is very big, and there's a lot of different boroughs of New York. So that's also kind of a loaded question. But can you find deals in New York City? Yes, you can find deals in New York City. You can find deals in Texas. You can find deals in Alaska. You can find deals anywhere. They get harder now because, again, depending on what it is that you're looking for, most people that are now putting their properties on the market are usually putting their properties on the market for a higher than normal price because they normally would have never thought about selling. Then they're there now, so those don't become a deal anymore. Basically, if you're going to find a deal in New York City right now, there's a good chance that you're going to find those deals off market. And how can you find an off-market deal? Well, obviously, you can go through all the brokers that are in New York City, email them and say, hey, listen, I'm looking for really good deals. You and everybody else who's an investor right now is going to do that. Most people, multifamily is just out of the question for them. Buying apartment buildings in New York City is very expensive. So if you have that kind of budget, call me. Let me know, because I'd love to talk to you if you got, $10, $15 million to buy apartment buildings in New York City. But for most people, they're looking for a duplex, and they're looking in Brooklyn or looking in Queens or looking for whatever. Normally, you're going to be able to find those deals if you're able to go onto the tax record somehow and find out that the owner of those properties is a single individual owner, not owned by an LLC. If you can actually get their name and somebody owns, say, an investment property, and you find out that they've owned it for, let's say, 15, 20 years, and they don't have it on the market, there's a possibility that they have good equity in the property and would possibly be open to you doing owner financing, where they would hold some of the note, and you'd have a little bit less money down, or two, that maybe they would think about selling to you and you don't know what their situation is. It could be somebody who's like, I have a ton of properties, I'm looking to unload them. Those are usually where your best deals are now, as far as finding something in New York City. And I have done that myself, and there's a lot of systems that you can use. But New York City is also one of those markets where the price points are very high compared to what your rents are. So I use a rule of 1%. If I'm not netting, right, 1% of my purchase price out of my commission. So if I'm buying a $400,000 property, the rents have to be at least $4,000 for me to even look at that property. It's got to be 1%, right? So if it's not, and let's say you find a property for $2 million and your rents are, you know, you're doing, you know, $10,000 a month in rent, that doesn't work. So I need to be seeing 1% for that to make sense in this market.
Would you suggest real estate investing out of your state? If so, would a condo be the best bet? For example, I live in New York and real estate is obviously expensive here.
It's smart. So I think the idea of saying, hey, listen, I'm going to go on LoopNet and I'm going to take $1 million I would have spent on a brownstone or one unit somewhere, but instead now I'm going to go and buy 35 units in Louisiana or Texas or North Carolina or a good rental market. Sure, you could do that. The problem that I have with some of that stuff is most people think they'll be able to trust the property manager, but they're not involved enough in real estate to understand that you're going with out-of-state property management and they tend to be expensive, and that property management will run into your net profits, and that deal might not look as good anymore. So the idea of the condo or the townhouse, I love the idea, because now you might be able to find a deal out of state in a condo or townhouse, and now you basically don't have to take care of the unit because it's going to pay an HOA fee. I think that is a great idea. I also love the idea right now of vacation rentals, for the simple fact that you can get weekly rents, and you can have kind of a property management who's also doing your booking. So if you're finding great locations that have been undervalued, so like Florida has great locations in the, you know, Fort Myers, Cape Coral area where people are just realizing what's there, that's also a great opportunity. So yes, I think if you're going to go out of state to start, absolutely should be a condo or a townhouse. But for a lot of people, again, how much are you paying? What's your return? That sort of stuff. Because again, you could find a condo for $200,000 maybe somewhere, but is you're gonna, rent's gonna be $700, you know, $800 a month. I mean, I don't know what the rents are going to be down there. So again, what does it cash flow? But to hedge your bets, yeah, I would do condo or townhouse out. Yeah.
Can you explain house hacking in detail?
Yeah. So house hacking it's house hacking. It's to hack around the system. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to buy a house and I want to use a program like a 3.5% down. Michael Cuomo can talk about what.
Yeah, I can probably help you with this one. So essentially what it means is, when I was saying, let's say, you know, you want to buy a property, but it's not for your forever home. You buy a multifamily, so buy a 2-family house. Now you're going to buy that house. You're going to live in one unit, you're going to rent the other unit. The idea is that rent from the other unit is going to pretty much cover your mortgage. And you also purchase that house as a primary residence, meaning you get more favorable rates. There's pricing bumps for different types of properties. And as you go to investment in larger properties, it's more risk for lenders and banks. So rates climb up from, you know, your single family or condo type of property. So anyways, back to you buy that house as a primary residence. You live there for, let's say 5 months, whatever. You buy another house then. Now that's going to be your primary house. So you can buy another multifamily. So now you got more income coming from that property to help you pay for it. You're now going to rent the house you previously just bought as a primary residence. Now you're getting full rental from those 2 units, and you're going to live in the next one. So when you purchase the second property, it's technically owner occupied. So you're not getting hit with the investment pricing bumps and the higher rates, and you just kind of keep bouncing and bouncing. And that's the way to get around that system.
It's an awesome. I tell my brother this all the time. He's looking for his first place. If I was in my 20s again, or it doesn't really matter, but I had the opportunity to buy a place that I would call my sole residence, meaning I'm going to say I'm going to live there. That's where I'm telling the bank I'm now living. That opens up, right, Mike? That opens up programs and down payment amounts that are no less than an investor would. I got to put 20 to 25% down on my properties, right? But if I'm house hacking, I could go to a house that's whatever amount, and I only have to put 3.5% down. I put that 3.5% down. I live in one side. I would definitely do this in a duplex or triplex or a 4-unit where you can get the other units to help pay off that mortgage that you're now doing, because then you're going to leave at a certain amount of time. It's such an amazing program. I mean, if I had the ability, you could do that every year. If you're coming out of college and you have enough for a 3.5% down on a multifamily, you just house hack for 10 years, and at 30 years old, you've had 10 properties. That's, as long as the bank is going to allow for that many loans, but yeah.
Typically you can get anywhere from 7 to 10 properties with a single investor. There's two major entities, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They're the government-backed entities that give us all the same mortgage pools that we draw upon. It's similar to think about student loans with Ginnie Mae or something like that. They control student loans. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, they do all the mortgage loans. So they allow you up to, depending on which one you go with, 7 to 10 properties. I will also expand on what Mike said. You can do that. However, just know as you start getting more properties, investment properties, things they're going to typically want reserves. It could be a 401k, it could be liquid, doesn't matter, but they'll want anywhere from 3 to 6 months of reserves for each property. So that may slow you down a little bit, but it's not a end all be all. It definitely, as you build that portfolio and you're gaining all this rental income, you're going to have a cash flow. So
yeah.
I'm a little confused about the 1% rule. Is there a way to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, so, okay, I will use my 4-family that I bought as an example, right? So I bought my 4-family for $250,000. My 4-family in this scenario, let's just say, gives me $1,000 per unit. That's $4,000. Let's say my expenses are $2,000 a month. That means I net profit $2,000. Right? Now, I have to look at first of all, the amount of rent income that's coming in. Does it match 1% of the purchase price? So I'm buying something for $250,000. 1% of $250,000, guys, help me out, is what?
$2,500.
Right. And what's my rent?
$4,000.
Right. That's an awesome deal. Right. That's almost 2.5%. I'm liking this deal right off the bat. If I'm looking at deals that match at least 1%, my rents come in at 1% of the purchase price, I'm interested. I'll listen. But if it's not even, I'm buying that same property that's bringing me $4,000 a month, and now they are asking me for $600,000. Well, what's 1% of $600,000?
$6,000.
Right. So that deal doesn't even make sense, because to me, I wouldn't even look at that deal. So that's how 1%. It's just a simple, quick way to look at it. You said, what's the asking price? What's the income and the rents? No, because then I know no matter what, I'm not going to be able to make that profit.
Do you advise buying under LLC or corporation? What are the benefits of these entities?
I can speak to that. Mike, do you want to also speak to that?
Yeah, I can touch upon it a little bit. So if you're buying LLC closing in an LLC is a little bit more complicated. The benefit is that you're putting an LLC which protects you and your personal assets. So let's say you own a home, you have significant financial wealth. If someone were to sue you, they can't go after that. They can only go after the LLC. Limited liability, there's not going to be much there to go after. On my side of it, there's a lot of lenders that don't allow that. I have programs that do allow LLCs, to be closed in LLC, but it's not an everyday common thing. You would have to, again, speak to somebody like me. You wouldn't go into your local bank or do that. Most of them are not going to entertain that. But it's more of a protection for yourself and your assets.
And what I will say to double down on that, for each property that you do acquire, I would recommend having a different LLC for each property that you do purchase.
Yeah, I bought my 4-family, and I made the mistake of buying it under my name. So it's under my name. There's pros and cons to that. probably having done it again, I would have put it under an LLC for sure. But again, that was the, I did it and that was a mistake on my part. Now to transfer it over an LLC, that's a whole nother legality and that's a whole nother thing.
Are foreclosure properties recommended for first-time home buyers? Are there different circumstances to buying a foreclosure property?
Oh, yes. Yes. That's when people start looking for foreclosures or pre-foreclosures, I always kind of cringe a little bit. Comes with so many, I mean, it depends on, again, what it is you're doing. If you're a house flipper or an investor, people are getting foreclosed in on houses and short sales, and now banks are about to take the property, so you get it at such a great price, then you're going to do an investment on it. That's all great. The problem I have with people who are looking to buy foreclosures as a home to live in is a lot of these foreclosures, the bank's not going to do the due diligence on the issues that are going to come in. A lot of them are going to be sight unseen, or you're going to buy them and you're going to just hope it works out. And you don't know about the issues that are going to come with them. So you have to just expect that everything is wrong. And yeah, you can get a really good deal in the days when there was foreclosures. Now that they're not really releasing them and they're not really doing them anymore. But I always say, if you have the opportunity to not have to do it, and you're going to buy a house that you're going to live in, and you're not in the business of construction or development or in some of the trade fields, you could be biting off a lot more than you could chew from some of these houses that are foreclosures. That's always been my thing. Can you get a great deal? Sure. But I don't know. Mike, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit opposite of what you're saying. Not entirely. However, as a first-time home buyer, it could be a little daunting. So you need to know that you're negotiating with a bank. They own the property. It's not a seller who says, oh, okay, you know what? I'll take that amount. They're gonna be like, we want this, that's it. We need to get off our books. If you don't like that, we'll go to the next person. Also with that, there's a lot of communication that you have to go through many channels on the back end. So when, let's say you make the offer, it's accepted and we're getting a loan, and a lot of times they have a specified closing. They want 30 days, 45 days. It could be a lengthy process versus just buying your standard home that, wasn't foreclosed upon. I will say though, if the deal is good and it needs work, there's loans called renovation loans where you can actually submit, I want to redo the kitchen, the roof, the siding, the pool in. You can get all that put into the loan. So if you don't have the cash up front, you can get that money. It's almost like a construction loan if you were to build a home. They roll it into what's called a renovation loan. And then as soon as you close, you have your contractors lined up. You get the work done. There's a couple inspections on the bank's end to make sure everything's going correctly and that everything's legitimate and building's perfect. And at the end of it, they close it out and you just start paying like you normally would on your mortgage if you purchased a home that didn't need renovations. So that's the benefit. I mean, if you have the site and the patience for it, absolutely. If you're very handy, then yes, you can do that. Just be forewarned. There are good foreclosures that really don't need much work. They just foreclose and that happened to be it. There's total gut jobs and rehab jobs. And with that, you would have to do a renovation loan because the house does have to be habitable, meaning running water, appliances working. You can't have holes in the roof, missing windows, or anything of that nature, because that would have to be fixed prior to closing. So that's going to require money out of your pocket. And if you don't have it, or you're a first-time home buyer on a tight budget, that's not going to work. You would want to do that renovation loan. But on the same token, like Michael said, in this market, it's also the deals are far and few. I actually have two foreclosures right now. One was a condo. It was very streamlined and easy. It was a turnkey property, luckily, just needs some paint. The other one is turning into a renovation loan because while they got it at a good price, there's a lot of issues that came up with inspections and when the appraiser went out to value the property. So it's really what your appetite is for doing the work and the patience. Are you going to be okay with renovating and doing that? If it's an investment thing, I probably would steer away from it unless you're a flipper, you own a construction company.
If you have current student loans, does that affect your ability to get a mortgage as a first-time home buyer?
Not so much. With COVID, it was a little prohibitive, but now they've taken the restrictions away. So with student loans, we look at them two different ways. If it reports a payment on the credit report, we use that. But right now, as most of you know, if you have student loans, they were put in forbearance by the government, regardless if you want them that way or not. What they do is if you're going to do a government loan called FHA, which requires only 3.5% down payment, they take 50% of the balance. So if you owed $10,000, the payment's only going to be $100. I'm sorry, $50 rather a month, and that's how they calculate it. If you have, if you're in the medical field, a lot of doctors, surgeons, they come out with hundreds of thousands of dollars in bills. There's medical programs we have. They actually negate those. They don't even look at them because they know, you're going to be a high income earner, and there's specialized programs for them. So no, it doesn't prohibit you. There's a lot of people that have student loans, even 5-10 years out of college. I've seen plenty of that, and it's not going to prohibit you.
Is there a ballpark figure that a first-time investor should have in capital before even thinking about investing in real estate, like 20,000, or does that depend on your credit score?
Again, I think, Mike, the big thing I would say to that is it depends. Like if you're house hacking and 3.5% down, do the math. Go look at what you could legitimately find a duplex that maybe in an area that is a certain amount of money and 3.5% down, you could get into it. It's whether or not you have the monthly cash flow to take on whatever mortgage that amount is going to get into. Right. It also depends on what your goal is. If you're looking to be an investor and you have $10,000 and you already own a home, well, not much you're going to be able to do there. So you might want to take your 10,000, invest in something else. If you have like 20,000, you might be able to buy something that's 200,000, get an 80-20, hard money loan, where you put 20% down, and they'll lend you 80% of the purchase and rehab costs. Then you flip a house and you turn your 20,000 into 40,000. So at a certain point, you can get creative with house flipping with a smaller amount of money down using hard money, and you can get a bigger return on your money. But the money down, everybody gets stuck up on how much money do I need to have to buy a deal. Well, it depends on what you're buying.
Yeah, it's definitely the down payment is the key thing. Other than that, like I said, that you just, like Mike just said, you want some cash to go into if you're going to be an investor, you definitely want some cash a little bit behind you.
You could owner finance too. I mean, let's say Michael Cuomo has a building and he's like, I got no debt on this. I own this free and clear. I just don't want the headache of it. So what you could say is, okay, I'll tell you what, Mike, I want $3,000 a month from this $4,000 net. You take however you're going to do it. You got 5 to 7 years in order to be able to run the property and get me the monthly that I want on this. And then you need to pay me the rest after it. I mean, there's a million ways to be creative with owner financing and possibly with no money down. I mean, again, that's a whole nother topic, is going into owner finance. But there's ways to do it. If you're creative enough, that's the cool thing about real estate. There's a million deals, a million ways to do it. If you're creative enough, you can do this with no money down. Very hard. I would not suggest it. I would go the down money, work on Michael Cuomo, have a healthy down payment, do it the easy way. But
yeah, I mean, I have ways and contacts too. I mean, if something I can't do, there are lots of creative programs. I have creative programs for like, self-employed people, like maybe they use bank statements or what they call a debt service coverage ratio program. I mean, you have a credit score that works for us. The building is going to rent this much a month. It covers the debt and no questions asked. So there's definitely those types of programs out there. And it's, it's really just, again, best to talk to your realtor and somebody like me, and they can point you in a direction, put you on a path to get where you want to go.
Would you have different tax obligations on an LLC investment property versus investment property as a condo or co-op under your own personal name?
It's something you would have to figure out with an accountant. Not necessarily, but under an LLC, it's a business. So you're going to claim rents, losses, whatever it may be. Obviously, you're going to claim losses, so you're not paying the government. Most people do that. As far as the benefits and how to get around it, that's something you would have to talk to an accountant about and how to structure that.
What do you think about investing in areas surrounding private universities for investment purposes?
That's actually a hot topic around. So I live near Quinnipiac University in Hamden, Connecticut. There's a lot of people that have multifamilies and single family houses, and they're turn and burns each semester. They just throw students in there. But the town in the past couple of years apparently has, because it keeps making the news, that's why I know about this, but they're trying to prohibit them, people renting to students specifically, which is kind of, I don't know, what's called redlining. You really can't do that, but that's for, I guess, their town selectmen and councilmen to decide. But, most other, college towns, like especially New Haven, Connecticut, you got Yale, Southern. I mean, there's tons of rental properties, and it's almost guaranteed income. You got the worry though of, what kind of property is it? I mean, are they going to damage the property? Are you going to have a hefty security deposit on it? Because, they're college kids. And while some are professional grad students, there's others that are freshmen just looking to have a good time. And at the end of the day, that's your investment. You want to protect it.
Yeah. What kind of landlord or owner investor do you want to be? Do you want to be fixing toilets? Do you want to have a property manager and have college kids in him? Do you want to be a landlord of businesses where you're on commercial? What kind of landlord or owner do you want to be?
And also with a lot of these private universities, when you get into those markets, it's one of those kind of areas where you can make a good profit on single family investments. So primarily where I am in Fairfield County, around Sacred Heart University, you go into what we call the North End and you invest into this area, you have higher returns in terms of student housing rents opposed to regular market rents. And it all comes down to the proximity, how far you are out from the university itself. So it can be very profitable, but it also comes into your management style, how much you want to leverage, do you want to have a property manager? It could be very hands-on, but typically when you break it down, each student has their co-signer, reduce as much liability as possible on your end. And when you really have a good group of students, it can be a great time for you. And once their foot are in the door, it's just really referral basis after that. They tell their friends tell their friends, and it's just about getting your foot in the door in these markets.
All right, I think we have time for one final question. Is taking an FHA loan a good idea, considering you have to pay mortgage insurance?
No, absolutely. So mortgage insurance just has, again, a bad, black cloud over its head, kind of like points. I mean, people don't really, they hear the word points, but they don't understand it. They just think it's bad. So what mortgage insurance is, when you're putting only 3% down, 3.5% down, you're basically putting less than the 20% down payment. That's when you incur mortgage insurance. What it is the honest version of it is that you are paying for an insurance policy to make sure, in this case, FHA, the government entity, and the lender who holds the mortgage note is going to be compensated in the event you default, don't pay, you foreclose. If you don't have a lot of money to put down, you're just trying to get a house, you're struggling, you can barely afford one, you just the first time, absolutely. Me personally, when I first bought my house, we bought a fixer-upper, and we decided to reserve the cash. So we only put 5% down. We took that cash, did all the rehab work, bathrooms, renovated the upstairs, all that stuff, knowing that I had it reappraised about 4 or 5 months later, and it appraised over that threshold where I was able to drop the mortgage insurance. Now, what I will say is that, so there's two different types of loans. You have conventional loans, and then you have your government loans, such as FHA, VA loans, if you're a veteran. FHA, if you put less than 10% down, that mortgage insurance stays with you for the life of the loan. It doesn't matter if you only owe $5,000 on the property and it's worth $1 million, they're still going to charge you for it. So at that point, you'd want to refinance out of it. But again, it's really designed just for that first-time home buyer, and mortgage insurance is not a bad thing. It's, it's an ends to a means.
Great, thank you. For any of the questions that were unanswered, I will make sure to send them to the three gentlemen, and I will have their contact information, so you could definitely contact them on your own. With that said, do you three have any last thoughts to share, and then we can wrap up?
I'll just say thank you for your time. And again, if anyone on this forum has any questions, I know Stacy's going to put out our contact information. Feel free to call, text, email. Even if it's general question, you're not wasting my time. I have no problem answering questions and helping you, get you onto your path of investment or buying that first house.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you everyone that made it. And I believe this video is recorded, so feel free to look back through it, find all the gems that we left throughout this presentation. And if you have any further questions, like Michael Cuomo said, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you get all the information that you need. And yeah, sounds about it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and a very special thank you to Michael, O'Brien, and Michael for such an informative presentation. For their complete bios, please go to stjohns.edu/APD series. Here you will also find a schedule of upcoming webinars and past recordings. I hope you will join us Thursday, September 23rd at 11 a.m., where we will have a discussion on physician practice management. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thank you all.
Take care.
Bye.